Good evening, curious soul who dares to cross the threshold of this ancient and forgotten domain. I am the guardian of these storied walls, the witness to the souls still wandering these dark corridors. You are here, driven by a quest for thrills, a desire to explore the abysses of horror and mystery. But be warned, what you're about to hear tonight goes beyond tales for children afraid of the dark. This castle, with its wind-whispered secrets and hidden memories in every nook and cranny, is the scene of events that the rational mind struggles to explain. Here, the veil between our world and that of the shadows is so thin that all it takes is a spark to unravel it. So, please, enough of this, and let the storms outside remind you that sometimes the real storms are inside in the stories I'm about to share. Listen, shudder, but don't let the fear overwhelm you. After all, they're just stories, aren't they? My dear guests, we begin our journey into the heart of horror with a legend that whispers through the leaves and stones of this ancestral domain. I present to you Whispers from the Labyrinth, a tale where every step may be your last. Beyond the castle's lush gardens lies an ancient labyrinth, forgotten by time and overgrown by vegetation. It is said that at its heart lies a secret so terrifying that those who discovered it never returned to share their story. The legend comes to life with the arrival of Olivia, a young archaeologist with a passion for the mysteries of ancient civilizations. Attracted by the rumors surrounding the castle's labyrinth, she decides to set out on an exploration to unlock its secrets, armed only with her courage and thirst for knowledge. Olivia enters the labyrinth at dawn, while the morning fog still envelops the hedges. She soon notices that the labyrinth seems to live, to breathe. The whispering of leaves and the rustling of branches seem to form words, warnings that she struggles to understand. As she moves on, the whispers become more insistent, clearer, forming blood-curdling phrases. Turn around while there's still time. What's locked up must not be set free. Olivia, though troubled, is too captivated by the mystery to turn back. She soon discovers that the labyrinth is changing, its paths altering as if controlled by an invisible will, drawing her deeper into its bowels. The statues lining the aisles seem to follow her with their eyes, their grimacing expressions making her uneasy. As she finally reaches the heart of the labyrinth, Olivia finds an ancient stone altar upon which rests a strange artifact, pulsating with dark energy. The murmurs reach a crescendo, forming a single voice, that of the labyrinth itself, which reveals its true nature to her. The labyrinth was built to contain an ancient, malevolent entity captured and locked away by the castle's founders. The artifact on the altar is the key to its prison, and each victim lost in the labyrinth has only strengthened the seal that keeps it locked away. Olivia realizes that her desire to reveal the secrets of the labyrinth puts her in grave danger. She tries to escape, but the paths give way beneath her and the hedges close in, pushing her inexorably towards the altar. In an act of desperation, Olivia uses her knowledge of archaeology to reverse the artifact ritual, seeking to strengthen the seal rather than break it. As she recites the incantations, the labyrinth is unleashed, the statues coming to life to prevent her from completing her spell. The battle is fierce, but Olivia, guided by an inner strength and the will to protect the world from the trapped horror, manages to complete the ritual. A heart-rending scream rises from the heart of the labyrinth, the entity struggling against its reinforced chains. As calm returns, the labyrinth returns to its original form, the statues regaining their inertia. Olivia, exhausted but triumphant, finds her way back to the exit, leaving behind her the labyrinth, which resumes its silence, its secrets once more well guarded. Thus ends Whispers from the Labyrinth, a warning about curiosity which, though noble, can sometimes lead us to the threshold of terrible truths. May Olivia's story remind us of the caution and respect we owe to the mysteries of the past. Here we are, gathered together to unveil tonight's second story, a tale that plunges us into the abyss of darkness and mystery. I present The Scourge of Shadows, an odyssey in which the figures we think we know turn out to be the heralds of a terrifying destiny. The chateau, with its majestic great hall, has always been the beating heart of the estate, witness to eras of splendor and decline. But at nightfall, when the last rays of sunlight give way to darkness, a strange and disturbing phenomenon occurs. The shadows seem to come alive, moving with a will of their own, alien to their sources. This nocturnal curse becomes the focus of attention for Vincent, a physicist specializing in paranormal phenomena, drawn to the castle's legends and determined to unravel the secret of these animated shadows. Armed with his instruments and his scientific mind, Vincent moves into the Great Hall after dark, ready to observe and document what he is convinced is a rare natural anomaly. But what he discovers far surpasses all his hypotheses. Shadows before his incredulous eyes detach themselves from the walls, forming humanoid silhouettes that move with grace and intent. Fascinated, Vincent notices that these shadows are not mere distortions of light, but seem to possess substance and consciousness. As he delves deeper into his investigation, Vincent learns from ancient manuscripts found in the castle library that the phenomenon of animated shadows goes back centuries, linked to an ancient curse cast by a witch banished for defying the castle lord. In revenge, she had condemned the castle's shadows to absorb the souls of the living, turning them into restless spectres, condemned to roam the night. Convinced that he must put an end to this curse to free the castle from its eternal scourge, Vincent embarks on a quest to find the witch's grimoire, which contains the secret to breaking the spell. His search leads him to a secret passage beneath the Great Hall, where, in the middle of a hidden chamber, lies the grimoire, guarded by the shadows of the castle's former inhabitants, now servants of the curse. A confrontation with the shadows is inevitable. Vincent, armed only with his will and the incantations found in the grimoire, confronts the scourge in a duel of light and shadow, each spell he utters strengthening his determination to free the castle from its evil grip. As the battle reaches its climax, Vincent manages to utter the final incantation, a beam of pure light bursting from his body to engulf the shadows, dissolving them one by one, freeing the souls they held captive. With a final cry of despair, the essence of the curse dissipates, leaving the Great Hall bathed in peaceful light, as if day had dawned on an era of newfound peace. Vincent, exhausted but victorious, collapses to the floor, grimoire still clutched tightly to him. In the morning, the castle's inhabitants find him asleep, surrounded by the remnants of an invisible battle, mute witnesses to the night when the Scourge of Shadows was defeated. Thus ends The Scourge of Shadows, a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, the light of perseverance and courage can reveal the path to liberation. May Vincent's story inspire each of us to face our own shadows with the certainty that beyond the night, dawn awaits. We now plunge into the depths of the unfathomable, where reality mingles with legend. I present to you the third story in our series entitled Eyes in the Well, a tale that will make you hesitate before looking into the abyss. At the heart of the vast estate surrounding the castle lies an old well, forgotten and overgrown, whose time-worn stones whisper stories of another age. It is said that those who dare to plunge their gaze into its depths find themselves confronted with their darkest fears, the eyes in the well reflecting not their own, but their innermost nightmares. The story takes an unexpected turn with the arrival of Leia, a young psychology student with a passion for paranormal phenomena and urban legends. Intrigued by the rumors surrounding the castle well, she decides to conduct her own investigation, armed with her scientific mind and insatiable curiosity. One moonlit night, Leia approaches the well, recording equipment in hand, ready to document her experiment. As she prepares to look down into the well, a sensation of icy cold washes over her, and a voice, almost a whisper, seems to warn her to back away. Ignoring the warning, she leans over the opening and plunges her gaze into the darkness. What she sees frightens her. Supernaturally green, luminescent eyes stare back at her from the abyss, not just one glance, but dozens, each reflecting a fear, a regret, a pain she's long buried. Leia tries to back away, but finds herself hypnotized, unable to avert her gaze from this nightmarish vision. Hours pass, and Leia finds herself a prisoner of her own terrors, each glance down the well revealing a new layer of her subconscious, until an unexpected event shakes her out of this trance. A piercing scream rips through the night, coming from the well itself, a scream so human it's heartbreaking. Gathering all her courage, Leia decides to face the darkness. She begins a perilous descent into the well, each meter bringing her closer to the eyes that are watching her, until she reaches the bottom. There she discovers not a source of water, but a secret cavity, an ancient sanctuary dedicated to a forgotten divinity, the walls covered with frescoes depicting scenes of horror and despair. At the center of the sanctuary, a pool of black water reflects not the moon, but the luminescent eyes that drew her here. Leia understands that the well is not just a well, but a portal between worlds, a place where tortured souls come to share their sorrows with those who dare to look. With this revelation, Leia is faced with a choice: flee and leave the well and its mysteries in oblivion, or face the shadows to free the trapped souls. Guided by a deep compassion for these suffering spirits, she decides to undertake an ancient ritual engraved on the walls of the sanctuary to appease the souls and close the portal. The ritual is grueling, requiring Leia to tap into her own fears and face them one by one. But her determination is unfailing, and as she utters the last words of the incantation, a soft light emanates from the pool, enveloping the luminescent eyes which, one by one, fade away with a final sigh of relief. When Leia rises to the surface, the well is no more than an ordinary well, its clear waters reflecting the moon and stars. She knows that the darkness she has faced will remain with her, but also the certainty of having brought peace to souls in distress. And so ends Eyes in the Well, a journey to the very depths of our fears, but also of our ability to face up to the darkness, not only in the world around us, but also within ourselves. May Leia's courage inspire us to look beyond surfaces, to face what we find there, and to find light even in the darkest places. Now we come to a story where painting and passion mingle with fear. This is The Curse of the Portrait, a story that will make you question the true essence of art. Once upon a time, in a remote wing of the chateau, there stood an imposing portrait of a long-forgotten ancestor, the Comte Édouard de Vallombreuse, whose exploits and vices had been shrouded by the veil of time. This exquisitely crafted portrait was renowned for its unsettling realism, the Count's eyes seeming to follow each viewer with a penetrating, almost accusatory gaze. Elise, a talented young art restorer, is hired to restore this masterpiece tarnished by the years. Fascinated by the mysterious aura emanating from the painting, she undertakes her work with a mixture of admiration and trepidation, each brushstroke bringing her closer to the very essence of the Count, captured in the painting. As the restoration progresses, Elise begins to feel a strange presence, as if the portrait were coming to life under her hands. Nights working alone in the great hall become increasingly oppressive, with inaudible whispers floating in the air, and the feeling that the portrait's eyes are following her more and more insistently. One night, as a thunderstorm rumbles outside, lightning illuminates the room, revealing the portrait in all its macabre intensity. Hypnotized, Elise can't tear her gaze away from the Count's eyes, and in a flash of terrifying lucidity, she understands that the portrait is a prison, trapping the Count's soul, condemned to relive his worst moments for all eternity. The revelation is too much for Elise, who decides to flee. But as she turns, she finds herself face to face with the spirit of the Count himself, escaped from his canvas to claim his freedom, a freedom he can only obtain by taking possession of a living soul. Elise finds herself trapped in a cat-and-mouse game with the Count's spirit, with every room in the chateau becoming the scene of a confrontation between life and painting. Using his supernatural powers, the Count manipulates shadows and illusions to torment Elise, seeking to break her. In an act of desperation, Elise turns to the ancient grimoires in the castle library in search of a way to send the Count's spirit back into her portrait. She discovers an ancient ritual requiring a mixture of rare ingredients and the recitation of forgotten incantations at the foot of the portrait on a moonless night. The final confrontation takes place in the Great Hall, with Elise armed with her knowledge and determination, facing the Count's spirit, furious and determined. As she recites the incantation, the Count's spirit launches a final attack, plunging the hall into chaos, the shadows unleashed in a whirlwind of terror. But Elise's will is unshakable. With the last words of the incantation, a ray of pure light emanates from the portrait, enveloping the Count's mind and forcing him back into the canvas, sealing him once more in his pictorial domain. In the morning, Elise, exhausted but victorious, contemplates the restored portrait. The Comte de Vallombreuse, once again motionless in his frame, his gaze devoid of the malice of yesteryear. She knows that the portrait will always remain a mystery, a doorway between two worlds, but a mystery she has managed to contain. And so ends The Curse of the Portrait, a reminder that art, in all its beauty, can also be the guardian of dark secrets. May Elise's story teach us to respect the shadows of the past, for they can sometimes contain more than mere memories. We now plunge into the abyss of the occult with a fifth story, introducing The Demon's Seal, a tale where ancient pacts and dark forces threaten to tear the veil of our reality. For centuries, deep in the castle's crypt has rested a demonic seal, a legacy of the times when black magic and infernal pacts were commonplace among the power-seeking elite. This seal, carved into the very stone of the crypt, successfully contained a terrifyingly powerful demonic entity, locked away by the estate's ancestors in exchange for wealth and prosperity for their line. But peace is fragile, and human curiosity eternal. Mark, a young historian with a passion for esotericism and castle legends, stumbles upon the seal in an old, forgotten grimoire. Fascinated by the possibility of validating a legend, he decides to explore the crypt, ignoring the warnings attached to it. Equipped with his flashlight and an adventurous spirit, Mark descends into the bowels of the castle, each step echoing in the silent depths. When he reaches the crypt, he is seized by the sight of the seal, whose ancient inscriptions and esoteric symbols gleam with a strange, almost living glow. Driven by a mixture of fascination and unconsciousness, Mark begins to document the seal, tracing his fingers over the engravings. But this simple contact is enough to upset the precarious balance of the Pact. The walls of the crypt begin to tremble, a dull roar rises from the depths, and a breach opens in the seal, releasing a wave of evil power. Mark realizes too late the extent of his error. The demonic entity, barely contained for centuries, begins to make its way to freedom, using Mark as the first host for its return to the world of the living. The young man's eyes blaze with an unearthly glow, his voice mingling with the sinister laughter of the freed creature. The castle is plunged into chaos. Shadows lengthen and twist, taking on menacing shapes, while malicious whispers fill the corridors, spreading terror among the inhabitants. The castle's ancestors, aware of the danger posed by the seal, had prepared countermeasures hidden in the library's most sacred texts. Alice, the current mistress of the castle and direct descendant of the founders, sets out in a race against time to find these texts and repair the seal before the entity regains its full power. Armed with her family heritage and unshakable courage, she confronts the demonic manifestations infesting the castle, guided by the spirits of her ancestors. The confrontation culminates in the crypt, where Alice, confronted by Mark, possessed and the demon's growing strength, begins the ritual of restoring the seal. Incantations echo through the confined space, a fierce battle of wills between Alice and the entity unfolding against a backdrop of ancient magic and fiery symbols. With a determination forged in the flames of her heritage, Alice manages to complete the ritual, strengthening the seal with her own blood, an ultimate sacrifice that once again binds the demon to the depths of the crypt. Mark, freed from the creature's grip, collapses, while calm slowly returns to the castle, the shadows dissipating like nightmares at daybreak. Thus ends the demon's seal, a lesson in the dangers of awakening what should have remained dormant and the power of sacrifice in the face of darkness. May the story of Alice and Mark remind us that some secrets are kept for our own protection, and that bravery in the face of evil is our greatest weapon. Now we come to our sixth story, tinged with injustice and redemption. Introducing The Innocent Chains, a tale in which the quest for truth defies the bonds of time and oppression. Deep in the dungeon, beneath the castle's ancestral stone vaults, lies a dark, dank cell, long forgotten by those who walk the lighted corridors of the seigneurial residence. In this den of oblivion, the rusting chains of a prisoner, once imprisoned for crimes not committed, cling sadly to the damp walls, silent witnesses to a bygone era. Legend has it that these chains, imbued with the tormented soul of their last wearer, still vibrate with a melancholy clank as night falls, a ghostly sound that mingles with the murmurs of ancient winds in the castle's secret passages. The spectre of this unjustly condemned man, a misty, indistinct silhouette, wanders restlessly through the dark corridors and deserted halls, an almost imperceptible but undeniably palpable presence for those sensitive to whispers from the beyond. Carried by the echoes of his eternal despair, this chained ghost tirelessly seeks reparation and peace, relief from the injustice that has sealed his tragic fate within these pitiless walls, where his story, erased by time, is told only by the wind and the shadows. Natalie, a lawyer specializing in retrial cases and passionate about the history of the chateau, finds herself intrigued by this legend. Convinced that every story deserves to be heard, even those whispered by stones and shadows, she decides to undertake an investigation to uncover the truth behind the myth of the chains of the innocent. Armed with her determination and historical research skills, Natalie explores the castle archives, deciphering ancient documents and dusty newspapers. Her efforts lead her to the tragic story of Julian, a young man from the neighbouring village, falsely accused of witchcraft and imprisoned in the depths of the dungeon, where he met a cruel and unjust fate. As Natalie unearths the details of this forgotten affair, spectral manifestations in the castle intensify. Sounds of chains are heard at night, and fleeting apparitions of a ragged young man appear, his eyes pleading for justice and liberation. Convinced that Julian's spirit will not rest until his innocence is recognized, Natalie embarks on a quest to clear his name. She gathers evidence, period testimonies and legal documents, reconstructing the events that led to the tragedy. Alongside her research, Natalie is confronted with supernatural challenges. Julian's manifestations become more powerful and desperate, as if the spectre fears that the truth will once again be buried with him. Natalie feels increasing pressure, not only from occult forces, but also from those in the present who would prefer certain secrets to remain hidden. In an act of bravery and solidarity across the ages, Natalie organizes a ceremony in the dungeon, attended by descendants of the village and the castle's current inhabitants. She presents the evidence of Julian's innocence, reciting the facts and asking for posthumous recognition of the injustice suffered. As Natalie's last words echo through the dungeon, an ethereal light envelops the chains, which slowly disintegrate, releasing a soothing energy. Julian's spirit appears one last time, no longer chained and tormented, but free and serene before fading into the light, his eyes expressing eternal gratitude. Thus ends The Innocent Chains, a story that reminds us that truth and justice transcend time and death. May the story of Natalie and Julien inspire us to seek justice, to listen to forgotten voices, and to release the chains of injustice wherever they may be. Now we come to the seventh story of our vigil, a story shrouded in mist and mystery. I present The Mist Trails, a tale in which nature itself seems to conspire to lead us astray into the twists and turns of the unknown. The castle, surrounded by its vast gardens, is famous not only for its architectural splendor, but also for the enigmatic mists that rise from its grounds at dawn and dusk. These hauntingly beautiful mists nonetheless conceal dark secrets, legends of lost travelers, and paths that lead to forgotten destinies. At the heart of this story is Clara, a renowned botanist with a passion for unique natural phenomena. Attracted by tales of the mysterious mists surrounding the castle, Clara decides to conduct a study to unravel the secrets of this phenomenon. Armed with her scientific knowledge and insatiable curiosity, she travels to the castle at dawn in autumn, when the mists are at their densest and most active. The first few days of her study were uneventful, with Clara documenting the composition and behavior of the mists with scientific precision. However, as her research progressed, she began to notice anomalies in the mists' patterns, paths that appeared and disappeared without explanation, as if the mist itself were alive, guiding or leading astray those who dared to venture within. One night, driven by an unexplained impulse, Clara decides to follow one of these misty paths, recording her observations. She soon finds herself enveloped in a veil of mist so dense that she loses all sense of direction. Sounds are muffled, the lights of the castle disappear, and Clara realizes that she has strayed into the very heart of the mystery she was trying to understand. As panic begins to set in, Clara hears a distant melody, one both soothing and melancholy, that seems to draw her deeper into the mist. She follows this melody like an Ariadne's thread until she discovers a hidden clearing, a secret garden shrouded in mist, where time seems suspended. At the center of the clearing stands an old stone statue of a forgotten deity, surrounded by strange flowers that grow nowhere else. Clara, fascinated, realizes that this clearing and these flowers are the source of the mist, a natural phenomenon to be sure, but imbued with ancient magic, a vestige of a pact between the castle's founders and the forces of nature itself to protect the estate. But this sanctuary is also a trap for those, like Clara, who are drawn to its beauty and mystery. The mist seeks to keep Clara prisoner, to add her to the legend of the lost souls who wander eternally in its veils. Aware of the danger, but also moved by the beauty and uniqueness of this place, Clara uses her knowledge of botany to find a way to escape, discovering that the flowers in the secret garden hold the key to dispelling the mist. Creating an elixir from the flowers, Clara makes her way through the mist, guided by the light of the moon. When she finally emerges from the mists, castle in sight, Clara knows she has been forever changed by her experience. She has discovered a wonderful and terrifying secret, a story she chooses to keep to herself, aware that some mysteries are best preserved in the sanctuary of nature and legend. Thus ends The Mist Trails, a journey into the depths of our world and soul, a reminder that beauty and danger often lie in the same hidden places. May Clara's story inspire us to seek knowledge, but also to respect the mysteries that nature chooses to guard. Allow me, dear listeners, to tell you the 8th story, an enigma woven into the threads of fate and darkness. This epic begins before this portrait, that of Lord Alister Redmore, the most illustrious of the lords who trod these ancestral stones. Lord Alister, a man of unrivaled nobility, was known for his grandeur and charisma, but also for his taste for the occult. The portrait, a masterpiece by renowned artist Edward Langley, not only captured the lord's striking likeness, but also seemed to imprison a part of his very essence. Visitors often reported the unsettling feeling that his piercing eyes followed them across the room, an effect attributed to Langley's talent until that stormy night when the truth came to light. The story takes root on a particularly dark evening, when lightning ripped the sky and thunder rumbled like the drums of a marching army. A group of guests, who had come from far and wide for a sumptuous ball, were gathered in the great hall, admiring portraits of Lord Alister's ancestors. Among them, Lady Eleanor, a young woman of striking beauty and quick wit, was the first to notice the strangeness of the painting. As the fire crackled in the fireplace, casting dancing shadows on the walls, Lady Eleanor stood motionless, staring at Lord Alister's portrait. She swore she saw him blink. Intrigued but not frightened, she approached for closer inspection, ignoring the warnings of the other guests. Then the portrait came to life, Lord Alister's eyes staring directly at her, his expression transforming from serenity to cold malevolence. Panic swept through the assembly, but Lady Eleanor remained fascinated, unable to tear her gaze away. The portrait, seemingly animated by the impulse of a mysterious force, began to whisper, first in a barely perceptible whisper, then in clear words, conveying an ominous warning of a treasure hidden in the depths of the castle, a cursed treasure that had caused the loss of many a Redmore. The revelation of the portrait sent the guests into a frenzy. Some, greedy for wealth, set off in search of the treasure despite warnings, while others, terrified, left the castle in haste. Lady Eleanor, however, remained intrigued by the mystery of the portrait and decided to conduct her own investigation. Her research led her to discover Lord Alister's obsession with alchemy and the supernatural. He had commissioned the portrait shortly after making a pact with a dark entity, promising his soul in exchange for the eternal prosperity of his line. The portrait was the guardian of this pact, and Lord Alister's eyes were the windows to the beyond, watching over those who would dare covet his cursed treasure. Lady Eleanor, armed with her discovery, confronted the portrait one last time, determined to break the pact and free the Redmore family from its curse. She had deciphered the riddles hidden in Lord Alister's journals, finding the key to sealing the entity back into the abyss. Facing the portrait, she recited the incantation, and the castle was shaken by an unearthly force, the walls trembling as if caught in an invisible storm. When calm returned, Lord Alister's portrait had changed. His eyes no longer followed the visitors. His expression was that of a man at peace. Lady Eleanor had succeeded, breaking the Pact and freeing the Redmore family from their ancestral burden. But Lord Alister's treasure was never found, and some say it remains hidden somewhere in the castle, waiting for someone brave or foolish to try their luck again. And so ends the 8th story, my dear listeners. A lesson, perhaps, in curiosity and greed, and the shadows that lurk behind appearances. But, like all good stories, it leaves one question unanswered. What would you be willing to risk to uncover the secrets behind the scenes? Here we are, my dear listeners, at the 9th story, an enigma wrapped in the pages of time and oblivion. Let me take you to a more remote corner of our castle, where the wood creaks under the weight of centuries, and the ink has long since dried. Our next tale concerns a character whose presence remains as palpable as the words on the pages he so cherished, the forgotten librarian. The castle library, a vast labyrinth of wood and parchment, had long been the pride of the Redmore family. Its shelves, stretching to the obscure heights of the ceiling, housed rare and ancient works, some as old as the castle itself. Among these treasures was the personal collection of Lord Edgar Redmore, a scholar with a passion for the mysteries of the universe, who had devoted his life to gathering the knowledge of the known world. The librarian in charge of this collection was a discreet man named Alfred. Few knew his story, but all agreed that he was as integral to the library as the books he protected. Day after day, year after year, Alfred watched over these volumes with unfailing devotion until death took him, as silently as he had lived. But the library refused to let him go. Visitors reported hearing the sound of footsteps between shelves, the rustle of pages being turned in the absence of any human presence. Some even swore they felt an invisible hand guiding them to a book they didn't know they needed. Alfred, it seemed, had never left his beloved library. Our story begins in earnest with a young researcher, Mademoiselle Isabelle, who came to study Lord Edgar's manuscripts. From the moment she arrived, she was fascinated by the ghost librarian's tales. Armed with her curiosity and a flashlight, she decided one night to unravel Alfred's mystery. She was not disappointed. As she explored a particularly old section, the light from her flashlight revealed a figure leaning over a desk, pen in hand. But as she blinked, the vision vanished, giving way to a cold breeze that swirled the pages of a book lying nearby. It was a diary, Alfred's own, hidden there for decades. The diary revealed the existence of a secret collection, hidden behind a panel in the library, where Alfred had gathered the forbidden and cursed works that Lord Edgar had once banished from his sight. These books contained secrets that human reason struggled to comprehend, truths that had the power to corrupt the minds of those who read them. Mademoiselle Isabelle, guided by Alfred's invisible hand, discovered this forbidden collection. Among these volumes, one in particular caught her eye, an ancient grimoire bound in human skin, which promised the power to communicate with the beyond. Driven by a thirst for knowledge, she opened the grimoire, ignoring Alfred's warnings in the margins of her diary. The grimoire opened with an incantation, and as Isabelle read it aloud, the library was plunged into darkness. Shelves shook, books cascaded, and a voice, Alfred's, echoed through the chaos, begging Isabelle to close the book. But it was too late. The shadows grew denser, taking on human form, and the spirits of the castle's former masters appeared, freed from their paper prison by Isabelle's cursed words. In an act of desperation, Alfred, using the last vestige of his earthly energy, guided Isabelle to reverse the spell. Together, they recited a counter-incantation, sealed by the sacrifice of Alfred, who agreed to bind his soul to the grimoire to prevent the spirits from doing harm. When day broke, the library was quiet. Mademoiselle Isabelle, shaken but unharmed, hid the grimoire in the depths of the earth, under the slab of a floor that no one would ever tread again. Alfred, the forgotten librarian, had finally found rest, his spirit extinguished with the light of dawn. And so ends our 9th tale, a story of curiosity, courage, and the eternal power of words. Remember, dear listeners, that in every story lies a lesson, and in every shadow a light waiting to shine. What will you learn from this one? We move on now, dear friends from beyond, to the 10th story, a tale shrouded in innocence and mystery. This time, our journey takes us into the silent corridors of this castle, where the echoes of a lost childhood echo. I'm about to tell you the story of the twins of Twilight, 2 souls born with the last breath of daylight, whose presence remains a puzzle, as touching as it is unsettling. Anna and William, the twins, were the long-awaited children of the Duke and Duchess of Redmore, a couple who had long despaired of having offspring. Their birth, just as the sun was disappearing behind the horizon, was greeted with joy mixed with a strange apprehension due to an ancient prophecy which whispered that no child born at nightfall could escape the shadows of twilight. The first years of their lives were bathed in happiness, the twins' laughter echoing through the halls of the castle, bringing light and life to the ancient stones. But this joy was short-lived. A strange illness, as sudden as it was inexplicable, took the children shortly after their 7th birthday, leaving behind a veil of sadness that not even time could dispel. The castle, witness to their short existence, refused to let them go. As night fell, servants and family members reported seeing the silhouettes of the twins playing in the corridors as if they'd never left this world. Their laughter, while a source of comfort to some, reminded others of the cruel reality of their absence. It was against this backdrop that Mademoiselle Eleanor, a young orphan with distant ties to the family, was sent to the castle to be educated. Curious and intrepid, she was fascinated by the stories of the twins and, driven by a deep sympathy for these kindred spirits, decided to unravel the mystery of their ethereal presence. One night, armed with a lantern and a steely determination, Eleanor followed the distant sound of laughter to an old wing of the castle, long sealed off and forgotten. Behind a worm-eaten door, she discovered the twins' nursery still intact, as if time had stood still. In the center of the room, Anna and William, their pale faces illuminated by the glow of Eleanor's lantern, invited her to join them in their perpetual world of twilight. Night after night, Eleanor returned to play with the twins, bringing toys and storybooks with her, creating an unbreakable bond with the spectral children. But she knew that this coexistence between 2 worlds could not last forever. Determined to free the twins from their temporal prison, Eleanor began searching the castle library, hoping to find a clue, a ritual, or a prayer that might help them. Her efforts led her to an ancient grimoire, hidden behind a false wall, which spoke of life and death, light and shadow, and how to guide lost souls to peace. Armed with this newly acquired knowledge, Eleanor prepared a ritual in the nursery, surrounded by toys and mementos of the twins. By candlelight, she recited the incantations, imploring the benevolent forces to guide Anna and William towards the light that had been denied them at birth. As Eleanor's words filled the room, a soft light began to emanate from the twins, enveloping everything in a warm, reassuring embrace. Their silhouettes grew brighter and brighter, until they were nothing more than 2 resplendent sparkles floating freely. With a final smile, they rose and disappeared, leaving behind them a silent nursery bathed in unadulterated peace. Thus ends the story of the twins of Twilight, 2 souls who, thanks to the compassion and perseverance of a young girl, found their way to Eternal Twilight. May their story teach us the value of empathy and the power of love to transcend the boundaries of this world. Here we are, souls thirsting for mystery, at the 11th of our vigils. Tonight, I invite you to follow in the footsteps of a tormented spirit, a prisoner of its own errors. Our story is that of a knight whose courage was matched only by the magnitude of his fall. Listen carefully to the tale of the broken oath. Sir Tristan, one of the most valiant knights in the kingdom, was renowned not only for his prowess in battle, but also for his unwavering loyalty to his lord. However, in the shadows of court intrigue, jealousy and greed paved the way for an infamous accusation, treason against the crown. In the face of these allegations, Sir Tristan, heavy-hearted but clear-headed, addressed the assembled court. "By my honour," he swore, "I will prove my innocence or perish in the attempt. This oath I make not only before you, my peers, but before the very eyes of Providence." So, armed only with his conviction, Sir Tristan set out to prove his loyalty, leaving behind him a kingdom suspended between doubt and hope. Years passed, turning Sir Tristan's absence into an enigma, his oath into a legend. Some said they had seen him fighting in distant lands. Others mourned him as dead. But in the castle, a spectral presence, that of a knight-errant, seemed to haunt the halls and corridors, as if Sir Tristan's spirit refused to rest until his honour was tarnished. It was the intrepid young Clara, with her passion for ancient stories and unsolved mysteries, who discovered the truth behind the legend. Delving into the dusty archives of the castle library, she found traces of a conspiracy hatched against Sir Tristan, as well as clues suggesting that he had uncovered a plot against the king himself, but had been betrayed before he could reveal the traitors. Determined to restore Sir Tristan's honour, Clara organised a secret meeting with the descendants of the key players in this historic tragedy. Armed with the evidence she had patiently gathered, she confronted them with the truth, revealing not only Sir Tristan's innocence, but also the identity of those who had plotted his downfall. The revelation sent shockwaves, rewriting a page in the kingdom's history and allowing Sir Tristan's memory to be properly honoured. But it was in the halls of the old castle that the real dénouement was to take place. Under a full moon, Clara made her way to the great hall where Sir Tristan had made his fateful oath. Holding in her hands the document that proved his innocence, she read aloud the declaration, each word echoing against the centuries-old stones, as if they themselves bore witness to this moment of justice. As the last words faded into the air, a figure appeared, dressed in Sir Tristan's armour, his eyes bearing the stigmata of long suffering. Fearless, Clara approached and handed him the document. Sir Tristan's spectre, grasping the proof of his innocence, raised his eyes to heaven, a murmur of gratitude escaping his spectral lips. A sudden wind blew through the room, taking with it the knight's presence. When calm returned, Clara stood alone, but in the air floated a sense of peace, as if an ancient weight had been lifted from the very heart of the castle. So ends the story of Sir Tristan and his broken oath, a tale of courage, truth, and redemption. May Sir Tristan's spirit inspire us to always seek justice, defend our honour, and believe in the possibility of reparation, even in the face of the darkest accusations. Here we are, brave listeners, on the threshold of our 12th story. A wake imbued with sadness, but also with the ethereal beauty of eternal love. I present to you the tale of La Veuve de la Tourmente, a grieving soul whose tears have spanned the ages. Lady Isolda, of unsurpassed beauty and grace, was the devoted wife of Captain Leandro, a man as brave as the sea was capricious. Their love, deep and steadfast, was the light that guided Leandro through the perils of the oceans. Yet every departure was a heartbreak, every farewell an omen of worry for Isolda, who awaited his return in the castle's highest tower, scanning the horizon day after day. One night, as Leandro sailed to distant lands, a storm of unprecedented violence swept across the sea, engulfing ships and hopes in its furious abyss. At the castle, Isolda, feeling the storm's heartbeat echoing her own, climbed the tower, lantern in hand, her mind in the grip of unbearable anguish. Days passed, and with them, rumours of Leandro's shipwreck reached the castle, bringing mourning and despair in their wake. But Isolda, refusing to accept this cruel reality, kept vigil each night, her lantern becoming a beacon of solitude and hope against the dark immensity of the sea. In time, Isolda herself faded away, swept away by grief, but her spirit, bound to the tower by the chains of her steadfast love, remained vigilant, an eternal sentinel awaiting an impossible return. Centuries later, the castle, now the subject of legends and whispers, attracted the attention of Julian, a writer in search of inspiration for his next novel. Fascinated by Isolda's tragic story, he decided to spend a night in the tower, hoping to capture the essence of this lost love through the veils of time. At midnight, as the wind moaned against the ancient stones, Julian saw Isolda's silhouette appear, her lantern dimly illuminating her face, where an eternal sadness could be read. Touched by the depth of her sorrow, Julian was seized by a sudden inspiration. He took up his pen and, guided by an unknown force, wrote a love letter, as if dictated by Leandro's own heart, words filled with promises of eternal love and a farewell that was not oblivion. Depositing the letter beneath Isolda's lantern, Julian stepped back into the shadows, his heart beating in unison with the tales of yesteryear. The instant Isolda took the letter in her spectral hands, a soft, soothing light enveloped the tower, the storm of her soul finally finding calm in the words of love she'd waited so long to hear. A celestial glow emanated from Isolda, illuminating the tower with a brilliant radiance before it dissipated into thin air, taking with it the lantern, symbol of her longing. Julian, witness to this moment of liberation, knew that the story he would write would carry with it the echo of this unfailing love, a beacon for all souls lost in the turmoil of loss. And so ends this sad tale, a story of undying love, of hope beyond despair, and of light in the deepest darkness. Which brings us to our 13th story. I present The Breath of the Gargoyle, a story where stone comes to life under the moonlight. For centuries, gargoyles have watched over the castle, their grotesque figures intended to ward off evil spirits. But among them, one gargoyle stands out, not for its appearance, but for the secret it guards. Sculpted by an unknown master, this gargoyle, perched on the highest tower, is shrouded in a mystical aura, its eyes seeming to follow the movements of the stars. The story begins with the arrival of a young historian, Arthur, fascinated by the myths and legends of ancient architecture. Attracted by the rumours surrounding the castle's gargoyles, particularly the one in the East Tower, Arthur embarks on a journey to unravel the mystery of this stone figure. One night, under a moonless sky, Arthur climbs the tower, his trembling hands finding a grip on the cold old stones. Arriving at the gargoyle, he is struck by the intensity of its expression, a deep melancholy radiating from its stone face. As he brushes against the cold surface, a chill wind suddenly rises, as if the gargoyle itself were blowing across the world. The wind intensifies, swirling around Arthur, who finds himself paralyzed, not by fear, but by an invisible force. The gargoyle's eyes light up with an unearthly glow, and a voice as ancient as the wind whispers through the storm, He who seeks to awaken the stone guardians must be prepared to hear their secrets. Arthur, guided by this voice, is taken on a journey through time, where each breath of the gargoyle reveals fragments of forgotten stories. He sees the castle through the ages, bloody battles, dark pacts, and stone guardians who have seen it all, silent witnesses to human history. But among these visions, one story stands out. That of the master sculptor, a man with a tormented past, who had been commissioned to create a gargoyle capable of protecting the castle from an ancient curse. In his quest, the sculptor discovered a forbidden ritual binding his soul to the gargoyle to give it life and the ability to watch over the estate. Arthur understood that the gargoyle's breath was a call, a plea to free the sculptor's soul from its stone prison. Armed with this knowledge, he embarks on a quest to find a way to break the sacred bond, scouring the castle's secret archives and consulting forgotten ancient texts. His quest leads him to a grimoire hidden in a crypt beneath the castle, where the rituals and incantations of the ancient guardians are inscribed. With the help of a few faithful allies, Arthur prepares a ritual under the glow of the moon in the castle courtyard, facing the tower where the gargoyle keeps watch. As the incantations echo through the night and the ritual ingredients ignite with ethereal flame, a tremor shakes the tower. The gargoyle, for the first time in centuries, moves, its stone wings unfurling in a dull roar. The wind rises, more powerful than ever, swirling around the tower, carrying with it the liberating cry of the sculptor's soul. At dawn, calm returns. The gargoyle, now silent, seems to watch over the castle with a newfound serenity. Arthur, exhausted but light-hearted, knows that he has not only revealed the secret of the gargoyles, but also freed a soul from the chains of his eternal vigilance. So ends The Breath of the Gargoyle, a story of mysteries revealed and souls freed. May this tale inspire in each of us the courage to seek the truth, no matter where it leads, and the strength to free those trapped in the shadows of the past. Here we are at another tale in our series, an enigma locked not only in the heart of this castle, but also in the pages of time. I present The Sealed Room, a story where the walls whisper secrets long forgotten. At the heart of the castle lies a door that no one has opened for generations, behind which lies a chamber that legends tell us was sealed to contain an immeasurable evil. The key to this door has been lost, and with it the story of what was locked inside. The story comes to life with the arrival of Eleanor, a young restorer specializing in the preservation of historic sites, hired to restore the castle's frescoes. Her interest in history and natural curiosity lead her to investigate the sealed room, drawn by the mystery that surrounds it. In the castle archives, Eleanor discovers a diary belonging to the former master of the house, revealing the existence of the chamber and the forbidden ritual that took place there. It recounts how, in a moment of desperation, an ancestor called upon dark forces to ensure the prosperity of his line, sealing in the chamber a pact and an entity that were never to be awakened. Intrigued and troubled by these revelations, Eleanor searches for the key, exploring the furthest corners of the castle. Her search leads her to a forgotten crypt, where, among the relics and tombs of ancestors, she finds a box containing the lost key, as well as instructions for a counter-ritual that could undo the pact sealed in the chamber. Armed with the key and fierce determination, Eleanor returns to the sealed door. Inserting the key into the lock, she feels a wave of icy cold escape from the interstices of the door as she turns the key. The door swings open with a sinister creak, revealing a dark chamber where occult symbols are carved on the walls and an altar sits in the center, covered in dust and cobwebs. The room, imbued with an oppressive atmosphere, seems to absorb the light from Eleanor's lantern, plunging it into semi-darkness. On the altar rests an ancient grimoire, open to a page detailing the cursed pact. Eleanor, understanding the magnitude of what she must do, begins to prepare the counter-ritual, reciting the incantations and using the artifacts found in the crypt. As she utters the last words of the ritual, a furious wind rises in the chamber, extinguishing her lantern and plunging the room into total darkness. Whispers are heard, as if the shadows themselves were trying to dissuade Eleanor from continuing. But guided by an inner force, she lights her lantern again and completes the ritual. A heart-rending scream erupts from the entity bound to the pact, as a dazzling light bursts from the altar, cleansing the room of its evil grip. When the light fades, Eleanor finds the room transformed, the occult symbols erased, leaving an ordinary room, free of its cursed past. Eleanor leaves the room, gently closing the door behind her. She hides the key where no one will find it, determined that the room should remain a mere relic of a bygone era. Thus ends the story of the Sealed Room, a reminder that some secrets must remain buried, and that curiosity, though a virtue, can sometimes lead us to truths we're not ready to face. We now come to our 15th and final story of the evening. A story that reminds us that the walls of this castle bear the scars of bygone eras. I present Claws of the Past, a tale where the stones themselves whisper of forgotten horrors. The castle, with its imposing keep, has witnessed many events over the centuries, sumptuous feasts, enchanting balls, but also dark times when the keep was used as a prison for those who had fallen from grace. The dungeon walls, eroded by time, appear innocent at first glance, but closer inspection reveals strange marks, as if ancient claws had tried to escape. It's against this backdrop that Gabriel, a young documentary filmmaker with a passion for historical mysteries, decides to make a film about the castle's legends and hidden truths. Intrigued by the dungeon's enigmatic markings, he embarks on a quest to discover their origin. In the course of his research, Gabriel stumbles across lost tales of former prisoners, tales of despair and madness, of dark rituals and inhuman torture. These tales tell of an evil entity summoned by a cruel lord to break the spirit of his prisoners, causing them to claw at the walls in their agony. Convinced that these stories must be told, Gabriel explores the depths of the dungeon, camera in hand, capturing every crack, every mark, as if to release the silent voices of the past. But as he moves deeper into the darkness, whispers are heard, and the marks seem to come alive, as if the tortured souls of the prisoners are trying to communicate across the ages. One night, as Gabriel revisits the dungeon to capture nocturnal images, an oppressive presence makes itself felt. Whispers turn to heart-rending screams, and the marks on the walls seem to pulsate with a life of their own. Suddenly, the scratches light up with a spectral glow, revealing ancient inscriptions, supplications, and curses hurled against the cruel lord. Gabriel, realizing that these marks are the last testimonies of the prisoners, decides to use his documentary to tell their story, to transform their suffering into a memorial of their resistance against oppression. As he finishes filming, a sense of peace seems to settle over the dungeon, as if the prisoners' souls are finally finding some rest through the recognition of their suffering. Gabriel, deeply touched by this experience, understands that his film will not only be a documentary, but a healing ritual for the wounds of the past. Thus concludes Claws of the Past, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of our history lie lessons in humanity and compassion. May Gabriel's courage inspire each of us to confront the shadows of our past, to bring light and comfort where there was only despair. My dear listeners, we have come to the end of our vigil. I hope these tales, woven in the crucible of light and shadow, have awakened a curiosity for the mysteries that lurk in the whisper of wind and the crackle of flame. But remember, what I've revealed to you tonight is just a taste of the stories that haunt the darkest corners of this world. Tales so deeply terrifying that they freeze the blood in your veins and whisper truths to your soul that reason refuses to accept. Perhaps, if you don't lack the courage, I'll share them with you next time. So I wish you all a night both horrific and silent. May your dreams be filled with delicious shivers, and may the silence of the darkness bring you peace and reflection. Until our paths cross again, take care not to awaken the sleeping shadows, and remember that sometimes the greatest fear lies in the unexpected.